Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the kind and compassionate. Salamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. I want to thank the organizers of this event for creating a safe platform where we can address this highly sensitive topic of hijab, on which many have an opinion of, but of which a very few, know the facts. Some of you might be surprised to see a female imam, let alone one without a hijab. I am not a mediocre imam, nor am I male or do I have a beard. I am an artist and an avant-garde imam. What that means exactly, I do not know, but I would love to research that together with you. For exactly 1 year, I was the first online female imam in the world. And the questions I had gotten from the rare male private messages was this: what do you think about the hijab? Are you for or against? This was the question I received from the male visitors to my website. As I never give a one-size-fits-all answer, I respectfully suggested that they ask me the question in public so that it could be discussed democratically with the whole congregation of visitors to my mosque. The men always, without exception, declined. There was a time that I wore hijab myself, and I might wear it again on some occasions, because the garment has so much potential in itself. It has become the logo of Islam. And as you might know, logos are very powerful. They can make or break a brand. Still, my idea of hijab is not black or white, and I have no answer about it either. What I can tell you is my personal history. The history of the females of my family, specifically. It all starts at the beginning of the 20th century in Melilla, a Spanish enclave in North Africa, which is 15 minutes from the border of Morocco. So many Moroccans live there. That is where my family comes from. This is Mezquita Central, the central mosque of Melilla. It's a very big and impressive building, filled with shops, tea houses, schools and terraces. They also sell some very impressive churros. The very first imam of this mosque was my great-great-grandfather, Sir Mimoun Scully. He was a learned scholar and widely known for his expertise of Islam. Enrique Nito, a student of the famous Spanish architect Gaudi, designed this mosque. The wife of the imam was my great-great-grandmother, Memmen Allal. Memmen Allal was a leader of her community as well. Portraits of women were very rare in her time. But here she is, wearing a turban that was wrapped around her head with her hair braided in 2 ponytails behind her. What struck me was that she was not wearing a quote-unquote traditional hijab, but a head cover that was common for men as well. This is a picture of Memme's daughter, my great-grandmother, Yamna, with her husband, my great-grandfather, Mimoun. She too was wearing the same turban and the same hairstyle as her mother, no trace of a hijab. A traditional hijab, in the modern sense, did not exist in those days. And these women were the most pious of the places they lived in. If anyone would wear a traditional hijab, it would have been them. And here is the next generation of women in my family. This is my mother when she was a teenager, wearing an Audrey Hepburn type of shawl, which was very fashionable in those days. My mother loved the matching sunglasses too. As you can see in this picture, my grandmother, seated with the baby, had no hijab either, but she wore a multi-sex traditional Moroccan coat called a jalaba. As you can see, my grandfather, standing next to my mother, wore the same type of coat as his wife. Girls did not wear hijab in the time of my mother. Modern girls her age wore tight trousers or miniskirts with short hair. And more traditional ones, like my mother, wore long dresses with their hairs long in a ponytail. The headband was very popular in those days. And here you can see my mother wearing one. It reminds me a little bit of the turban of my great-great-grandmothers. But this one is like a modernized version. The headband was very popular. At my mother's engagement, she still wore the same kind of clothes, a kaftan, and here too, no hijab. When my parents came to Holland, my mother still wore the same type of clothes which she did before. Modest, but no hijab. Just like all other women that joined their husbands to Europe in those days, she was dressed very modern. And by the way, the dress, she made it herself. And the baby is me. Still an Audrey Hepburn shawl here. My mom with me and my two brothers. This was the past. Now the present. Do you see the contrast between these two pictures? The Meiden van Halal are three sisters that have become very known on the Dutch television. And they are seen as typical traditional Moroccan Muslim women. But if you look at the picture of the past, you will see that in the past, traditional Moroccan Muslim women looked very differently. The hijab as we know it today is very modern. I would like to introduce to you a dear friend of mine, Katinka Sliepenbeek. Katinka is a Dutch feminist who is a writer and has previously worked at the Dutch National Women's Council. She could not find any work after she left the Dutch Women's Council, so she started writing. I asked her a few days ago to share with me her views about the hijab. I know her as someone who's very honest and who can tell painful things but that need to be told. This is what she wrote to me. I and many Western women with me believe that all women of the world really need to decide for themselves whether they want to wear a headscarf or not. That is my starting point. But in the course of the past 10 years, the headscarf on the street has gotten a very different connotation. Women with headscarves usually send out a sense of superiority to Western women. This sounds very discriminatory, but it is a view that I share with many Western women from my area which is densely inhabited by Muslim migrants. I have to say that my personal experiences with women with a hijab have not been very positive. I saw a lot of women with a hijab jump the queue when waiting in line in shops. And when I go to the market, the one who mercilessly snatches a bargain away from me is usually a lady with a headscarf. My daughter, who is 14, has many Muslim friends, many of whom she knows from infancy. They all wear a headscarf now. Robin has no judgments. She doesn't want to judge them because she doesn't want to lose her friends. But they, on the other hand, do often judge her for her, in their eyes, frivolous clothes. I do not accept that. The difference between the girls starts to get bigger and bigger. Robin is, quote-unquote, too free, according to her Muslim friends. Some Muslims even call her a whore. My daughter is not a whore. She is 14, young, and tries to enjoy life. She has the right to do that without a headscarf. But then she will have to part with some of her Muslim friends. Over the years, these kinds of experiences have dramatically changed my views on the headscarf. I believe now that religion, any religious expression whatsoever, whether it's a cross, a yarmulke, or a headscarf, should no longer appear in the streets. At home, people should do as they like, but no religious expressions in public. End of her letter. What has struck me about her letter is that the critique of my friend Katinka only seems to be about the hijab. Because when you look closer, it is actually about how the women with the hijab have behaved towards her and her daughter. It's not about a garment, it's about how we treat each other. It is not news anymore that extreme right is rising. Causes of this can be fear of the other. In most cases, it is fear of Islam. And those who are directly recognizable as Muslims are the hijab-wearing women. So they are the ones highly at risk of hate attacks. In the recent global feminist marches, this iconic poster with a woman with a hijab has crossed all over the world. It was the first time a woman with a hijab became an icon in American social activism. The future is something I am in dubio with. We are at a crossroad. It could get really bad, with extreme right having its momentum both in the Western world and in the Middle East. Women could lose their freedom in both regions, here in the West, but also in the Middle East, where influences from Wahhabism and the Muslim Brotherhood have caused an environment where hijabs have become more socially forced upon women, or even by the new governments. I have been consulted by many girls from Morocco who wanted to commit suicide because their parents wanted to force them to wear a hijab. But I also see women with a hijab here in the West who cannot find jobs or get discriminated or spit upon on the streets. I know this firsthand because I have worn a hijab. There is not one single story. Reality is very nuanced and complex. But that is what makes the truth interesting and what gives us hope. We can unite ourselves and stand up for others who are different from us. If you wear a hijab, be aware of your ambassadorship. Extend a helping hand. Support women who are harassed and called whores. Invite neighbors. change the story of the hijab. Wassalamu alaikum, peace be upon you.